All right, hell yeah. So someone asked, like, how you know, can I have a long paddle or is a short paddle better? That's kind of like the question in my mind. And I always think short paddle is better. You know what I mean? I want to be leaning over. That is my reason. Leaning over because I want the paddle stroke vertical, and I don't want my hand to be like too high. You know what I mean? I kind of want it so when I do the power part of my stroke, you know, I'm kind of right. I think forehead to chin. I think that's kind of where you want to be. So anyway, I've got my 66-inch Carlisle guide stick. So let's just see kind of where. See, my hand's kind of just tall. And that's fine. So like on the catch, you know, paddle strokes kind of have like three parts. One's the catch. I mean, you're not gonna you're not already gonna have your paddle in the water. You know what I mean? And you can't do something like this. You know what I mean? So when you are reaching out for your full paddle stroke, you're gonna have a catch, and that's gonna dictate the top of your hand right there. So that's my catch on that paddle. And then here's the shorter one. You know what I mean? So it's probably not too much difference, but this is a 60-inch paddle, and this is a 66-inch paddle. So it just feels like I'm reaching for, you know, the ceiling. So there is that element to it, because I noticed some people using longer paddles starting out R1, and they're just going to be out to the side right here. You know what I mean? So that's kind of probably what's going to happen is if you have a longer paddle, you're just not going to put your hand way up top, so your catch is always going to be kind of right in this area, where if I'm in this area for my catch, you know, this isn't too much higher to do a vertical paddle stroke with that paddle. But if my catch, you know, is right in here, this is pretty tall, and this might be too tall. So that's kind of the first thing, is the paddle catch. All right, so but let's give this paddle what it's worth, because this is the Carlisle guide stick, and it's heavy. So is this paddle. This paddle is heavy for its shape. You know, I mean, it's not a fiberglass paddle. And I'll just talk very briefly. I do really like this paddle blade. I'm going to try to get my fiberglass paddles to actually perform more like this. One, I think it is a little bit narrower, and this also brings up the element of a shorter paddle stroke, because sometimes I only want to have like half my blade in, and then so my arm is still pretty high. But if I just want to get like the tip in with this, you know what I mean, my hand's just going to be a little bit higher. What I noticed right away is the weight of this, you know what I mean, it actually feels good. So that is why I really enjoyed this paddle, even on the Grand Canyon. Even with my boat fully loaded, this paddle's not very strong. It's the Outfitter series, so they're like 50 bucks. And they probably do have just a little bit thicker aluminum. But I mean, by no means is this like, I mean, literally on the Grand Canyon when my boat was fully loaded, if I took just a huge stroke, I could literally just bend and snap my paddle because it had no resistance. It was just like hitting concrete, and you get to the bending point of this paddle. So even just right there, you know what I mean, that's why I even want to experiment with this paddle and shaving it down so it just feels, so I can go like full strength, because this is an empty boat. Now if I do that same thing with full strength, I still want that much momentum. You know what I mean? I want to go from here to there. I don't want to just be like, you know, trying to hold my whole weight, because yeah, so that's the two elements of a strong paddle stroke. Well, why don't you just paddle, you know what I mean? Because you don't have an opportunity. If your blade is too big, the only way to make faster paddle strokes is just get less of your blade in the water. But I would rather have more of my blade in the water and have it narrow. So that's going to be for future videos, figuring out if I can get my fiberglass paddles decent. But hell yeah, like this paddle, I mean, the paddle has inertia. So I think rafting, what I'm learning, especially R1, rafting is an inertia game. You know what I mean? I actually, I'll have to make another video, but you really should put the same weight in your boat as like kind of a full expedition, multi-day. Grand Canyon, I had like 50, 60 pounds of food just in the front. You know what I mean? 10 gallons of water in the front. you know, gear, and then a groover in the back. You know what I mean? So, and the boat just feels amazing. Now, like I said, you probably want to trim down your paddle because, like, even just one stroke is too much. It's like concrete. But the second you got that stuff moving, it's like you got a tank out there. You got a semi. You got a train. You know, you have mass times velocity, and that's a winning game when it comes to like hitting waves and stuff and rafting. All right, so that is enough preamble. Let's see what this paddle can do. I'm just gonna paddle back and forth. But I don't know, you notice if my paddle hand is too high. You know what I mean? I probably will just enjoy this paddle. All right, those last strokes were my deepest. You know, I really like those deep strokes. We'll do deep strokes on the way out. All right, now we'll do shallow. Because I just got to be right on the surface. Yeah, it's just my hand's too high. That's for sure. All right, so we're gonna do the first switch. We'll switch back. But let me get this and just get my hand paddle strokes right on the surface, back and forth. Yeah, my hand's not as tall. Especially when I redirect the boat, I'm just kind of holding a pry right here. So that's where I'm going to notice that the most. All right, hell yeah. I don't mind this video being long, you know what I mean? Because you're going to either watch or you're not. But let me throw some more time on the clock and we'll give this paddle some help. Alright, I think the other cool thing between these two paddles, one, this is longer, but it's way heavier. I think anyone guiding has definitely known the Carlisle guide stick. You know what I mean? For 60 bucks or whatever, you can get something to power the back of the boat. And it's heavy. And I'm actually really surprised this is going so well with R1. I didn't realize just having a heavier paddle doesn't make the dynamics any different with your paddle blade. Now this is a huge blade in the water, yeah, so it definitely takes more power. So there's two things here. I'm going to make a separate video with my fiberglass paddles, but because they're so thin, the blades will they'll get vibration. They'll almost hit speed wobble. So like this thing is just a chunk of thin plastic, but for whatever reason, it's probably just as thin, but it never vibrates back and forth. It never does that, and it never feels like it's going to slice. So, like this paddle, I don't know, probably just has way more drag, you know what I mean, which might not be a good thing. But if you want to hold your paddle in position, just if every stroke is like, hey, that's where I want to be. I want to paddle, I want to stick my paddle in and go that way with my stroke. It's going to. It's not going to slice to the side. Like really sharp kayak paddle. I think we're all familiar with that. So that is one of the elements that I'll have to try the NRS paddle, you know, because that's the other thing. At first, I want my opinion to actually matter. I don't know. I don't care about my opinion mattering, but it's like I think I have an idea in my head that makes sense. But that's the other thing. It's like, no, hell no. Like I'm gonna try. I might just paddle with this long paddle all week. You know what I mean? Go a 70-inch paddle, and then realize, oh no, you want a 70-inch paddle. It's way faster. I can still get vertical. But even right now, I think the shoulder issue, getting your shoulder this high. And like I said, it's only 6 inches different, but for me, this is significant. Now, the question was like between a 60 and a 62. Well, yeah, I think the guy making the comment, he was real tall. It's like, yeah, hell yeah. Because even me, I'm 5'11", and I could do this. I could do a 66-inch paddle and probably get used to the extra height. But even just the first 2 strokes, I'm not super, and I probably do get extra lever. I think with this feels like a bigger fulcrum because I think you can go too small. Like my game is 60, but if I have a 58-inch fiberglass paddle, and it feels like I'm reaching out over the water too much. So that element of like this paddle, I'm gonna be able to reach out over the water, but I think I'm gonna be able to pop myself back in. And that is an underestimated, like your safety check guy, you know, if you do any rafting, they'll be like, no, you wanna lean over and take big paddle strokes because that actually is gonna help support you back in the boat. And this is kind of the R1. And it really is the R1, even if you're like doing a dynamic stroke, because you want to be catamaran to the side. Like I do this a lot, where you're leaned out to the side, and then you kind of take a stroke and kind of rudder to get back in. It kind of helps get that inertia and that tracking back to the center of the boat. All right, so well, let's do some more paddling. You know what I mean? But I'm really happy about the stuff that I'm talking about. I think it's worthwhile. Oh. Yeah, one last thing. Yeah, these 2 paddles, this one's way heavier, this one's way lighter. You know what I mean? It's like Major League Baseball. You know what I mean? This is throwing. You got your bat. You got 2 bats right here, and paddling around with this. After even just 5 minutes, you go to that, you'll just be like, oh, this is a breeze. So yes, I do recommend getting. Like, I'm gonna put this in my wheelhouse. You know what I mean? Paddle around with this heavy paddle. Because the second I go back to that other one, it's gonna feel great. All right, and the pry is real wicked. You know what I mean? There's so much paddle blade here that, you know, I can just really pry this boat kind of wherever I want to go. And we've talked about this in future other videos where if I want to go that way and it's all windy or just the current, you know what I mean? I probably want to pry this way and then turn my boat. Let's do that one more time so you can see it. So hell yeah, getting off angle. You know what I mean? Pry this way. Even just to get any momentum going where you want to go. All right, so I think I'm about done, but we'll do one more and call it a video. All right, hell yeah. And again, one thing I do notice is that this is more weight, and so it helps control your paddle blade. Wherever you stick your paddle and pull your paddle, that's where your paddle is going to go because it's got so much mass. It takes a lot of energy to rotate, even just to rotate this. Maybe the blade's heavier, but the shaft is definitely heavier compared to fiberglass paddles, and I got 2 of them. I got the nice curved blade from Warner, you know what I mean, and that one, it seems like the worst. But then there's the element I just haven't gotten used to it, and I'm a slave for these T-grips. I like the small T-grip. I don't want my hand curling. Like if I had a kayak paddle, I would probably want something narrower, you know, strong and narrow compared to like a wide. Like even think about it, like mountain biking. I mean, would you want your, like mountain bike grips are probably less round than a kayak grip. Now they're probably about the same, but I bet you, no, they're less round. you just get more control with a smaller diameter. And that's why I definitely like this smaller diameter shaft compared to the Warner. The Warner's got too big of a grip and too big of a shaft. Where, like, if you made this paddle out of fiberglass, I would take it. I still think, like, it would be great for a race situation. But even this paddle, it's heavy. But that also is, that is what I like about this paddle, is that when I throw it forward and pull it back, like, even just moving it, it has inertia. So when I'm, you know, so it is heavier, but I've just gotten so used to this paddle. But it helps me dial in kind of even the correction strokes. You know what I mean? Because I'm moving kind of the shaft around with mass, with heavier mass, it's not so feathery. It's not so, you know, wispy like your traditional, like, and I think we all know it, kayak paddles are real sharp, thin fiberglass, and that is a feeling people get used to, you know, especially when sculling, because you get so much power, you know, sculling. Compared to this, you're just not going to get the lift, but that's not what I want. I want accuracy. I want to, you know what I mean, throw my paddle in and then have it, you know, have it do stuff like that, you know, just like, where it's, this paddle isn't slicey at all. So it's totally for a separate video, like trying out all my fiberglass paddles. But all right, so this does it. Thanks for joining me, and guess what? That's a video.